The market does not care if you are tracking a $1.3 million portfolio shift or the last 12% of your phone battery. Whether you are managing $31 in your pocket or $31,000 a year in Memphis, the machinery of capital operates with a cold, mathematical indifference to your humanity. Survival at every level is simply a variation of risk analysis, and today, the math dictates your reality. Picture this. It is exactly 7:14 on a Sunday morning, and you are perched on the 43rd floor. From this height, the urban landscape below is frozen in a state of pre-acoustic grace. Imagine a massive clock where the gears have paused just before the first tick of the day. That is how the city feels before its inhabitants choose to breathe life back into the streets. You glance at your phone and see a single alert. While you slept, your net worth swung by a staggering $1.3 million. You do not even bother to swipe the notification open because the trend line is already etched in your mind. Instead, you focus on the ritual of the morning, pouring coffee and claiming your seat by the glass. There is a profound, almost heavy silence in knowing that at this height, the world has no leverage over your schedule. No one is knocking. No one is calling to issue orders. You are the architect of your own hours. But let us wind the tape back to where it actually began. Welcome to Level 1. At this stage of the game, the Gregorian calendar is a hallucination. Sunday is not a day of rest. It is an irrelevant concept reserved for people who have the mental margin to distinguish between a Tuesday and a weekend. Your reality is governed by different variables entirely. You aren't checking the S&P 500. You are tracking the mercury in the thermometer and the perimeter of your own physical safety. Your entire financial universe is condensed into $31 tucked in your pocket and a dying phone battery sitting at 12%. Your objective is singular and visceral. You need to find heat. Right now, it is 9:44 a.m. You have been conscious since the moment the horizon bled from ink black to a bruised charcoal grey. Your morning has been spent leaning against the cold masonry of a parking garage entrance, your bag wedged firmly between your ankles. That bag is not just luggage. It is your entire life insurance policy. Inside is a fresh set of clothes and a crumpled lease for a home you can no longer enter. You treat that bag like a vital organ. You never detach from it, not even when your eyes finally close. Have you ever considered the sheer cognitive load required just to stay alive on the street? While most people are debating whether they want avocado toast or eggs for brunch, you are running a high-stakes simulation in your head. You are identifying exit routes, calculating the shelf life of your resources, and vetting every stranger who enters your field of vision. It is a level of tactical risk management that would cause a corporate executive to have a nervous breakdown within 48 hours. Finally, the public library on North Michigan swings its doors open at 10 a.m. You find your sanctuary near a wall socket. As that battery icon slowly climbs to 17% and the building's heating system kicks in, you realize you have achieved the ultimate victory for this level, a moment of warmth where the staff looks right past you without an invitation to exit. Then there is Level 2, where the stakes change but the pressure remains constant. You are pulling in $31,000 a year managing inventory at a warehouse on the outskirts of Memphis. Your alarm goes off at 8 a.m. in a one-bedroom apartment that costs you $840 every month plus the weight of the utilities. You tell yourself you are doing fine because you have a ceiling over your head, but you are acutely aware that 20 minutes down the road, there is an encampment under the overpass. The gap between your living room and that concrete pillar is as thin as a single missed paycheck. You have a leaky sink that has been dripping like a metronome for 3 weeks, yet despite your messages on Friday, the landlord is a ghost. You do the math on the wasted water and decide that silence is cheaper than a confrontation. On this level, Sunday is just a fancy name for a secondary job called life upkeep. It is the dumping ground for every chore that you were too exhausted to touch during the work week. You are at the laundromat 4 blocks away, feeding $6 in quarters into a machine, while you stare at an electric bill that spiked by $16 for no apparent reason. You check the numbers 3 times, searching for a logic that is not there, before clicking pay. This is the true face of financial stress. It is not a sudden explosion, but the relentless grinding of small, unfixable gears. Your phone vibrates at 2:17 p.m. It is the boss asking for help at 4 p.m. You look at the screen for a long time. You know the 4-hour shift is only worth $43 before the taxman takes his cut. What do you think your answer is? Of course, you say yes. You always say yes because at this level, your time is the only currency you have left to burn. You finally step inside, leaving the cold behind. By the time the clock hits 11:41 p.m., Sunday has officially expired, leaving you with a specific brand of exhaustion that no amount of REM cycle can actually heal. This is the fatigue of the soul, not the body. It is the weight of moving into level 3. Now, you are firmly in the lower middle class, pulling in $54,000 a year while navigating the heat of Phoenix. Your life is anchored by a 2019 Honda Civic that has already clocked 106,000 miles, a modest one-bedroom apartment, and a Roth IRA you haven't glanced at since you opened it last April. You let yourself sleep in until 8:30 a.m., a small rebellion that feels like a massive indulgence. The first thing you do is reach for your phone to check your banking app, a nervous reflex. You see $912 in your checking account. You remind yourself that payday arrives this Friday, then you quickly kill the app. You had every intention of hitting the farmer's market this morning, but as you drive toward it, the reality of the math hits you. You see the signs for $11 sourdough and $8 jars of local honey, and you keep driving straight to the discount grocery store. You have run those numbers 1,000 times. You know the premium price for artisanal bread is a luxury your budget cannot absorb today. Instead, you spend your afternoon running 3 miles, cleaning the apartment, and losing yourself in a streaming show for 90 minutes. For a brief window, the sun hits the floor at the perfect angle, nothing in the house is leaking or broken, and you feel like a person who has finally mastered the art of living. But then, the digital shadow falls. An email arrives from your student loan servicer. You still owe $58,400. You have been grinding out payments for 3 years, yet the mountain barely looks smaller. At this level, ignoring that email is not a sign of laziness. It is a defensive maneuver. Think of it as financial battlefield medicine. You cannot stop the bleeding today, so you look away to keep your sanity intact. Moving up to level 4, the numbers grow, but the complexity explodes. You and your partner are bringing home a combined $148,000 in a quiet suburb outside Cincinnati. You have 2 kids, ages 7 and 9, and Sunday has become a logistical marathon that would baffle a flight controller. You are up by 6:53 a.m. because the 9-year-old is already making noise downstairs. From that moment on, your life moves like a train locked on a high-speed track. Soccer practice starts at 9 o'clock, the grocery run happens at 11:30, and the afternoon is a blur of meal prepping to ensure the family does not hit a wall by Tuesday evening. Between unloading the dishwasher and signing field trip permission slips, there is always one lingering task you failed to finish on Friday. Yet, here is the truth that people often miss. You actually love this. The minivan, the house in the subdivision, the Saturday morning madness, none of this was an accident. You built this life brick by brick, and it is exactly what you wanted. But then, right around 3 p.m., the atmosphere in the house shifts. The air gets heavier. Your partner falls into a pensive silence, and you find yourself scrolling through work emails despite your promise to stay offline. The kids pick up on the tension and start acting out, making the rooms feel like they are shrinking. It is not that anything went wrong. It is just that Monday has already begun its mental invasion. Think of it like a massive planet with a heavy gravitational field. By mid-afternoon, you have already been pulled into its orbit. You sit at the kitchen table as your tea grows cold, reviewing next week's schedule on your screen. Physically, you are in your home, but mentally, you are already at your desk. This is the hidden tax of the middle class. You spend your entire salary trying to buy back your weekends, only to surrender the best parts of Sunday to the looming shadow of the office. Now, let us look at level 5. You have climbed to $220,000 a year as a product manager for a mid-sized tech firm in Austin. You have professional help now, with a dedicated financial advisor over at Fidelity. Your financial engine is firing on all cylinders now with a brokerage account, a solid 401k, and a dedicated 529 plan for every child in the house. When the quarterly summary landed in your inbox this past Thursday, you gave it a thorough read. What did you feel? It was a strange cocktail of pride mixed with a faint, quiet guilt that you couldn't quite put a name to, so you simply closed the tab and kept moving. Sunday morning at this level is the ultimate reward for the grind. You wake up at 8:45 without the jarring scream of an alarm. Your home spans 3,900 square feet, so large that there is literally a room you almost never set foot in. You spend 42 minutes on the Peloton, not out of self-loathing, but to protect the high-performance machine you have built your life into. Breakfast consists of Real eggs, cracked fresh, while you sip coffee processed by a $280 grinder that brings you zero buyer's remorse. The silence here is expensive. It is the product of premium insulation and the curated peace of an elite zip code. Your kids, now 11 and 13, are still dead to the world in their rooms. In this bracket, having teenagers who can afford to sleep late is its own hidden currency. But let's talk about the parts of this life that usually stay off camera. Your children attend a private academy where the tuition is $27,000 per year for each kid. You are active in 2 different parent group chats that pretend to be about school fundraisers but are actually high-stakes arenas for status maintenance. For the spring gala, you will write a check for $1,500. You won't feel particularly philanthropic, nor will you feel cheated. It is simply the entry fee for staying at this specific social table. You know that if you skip it, you won't be kicked out, but the rest of the table will certainly register the absence. You pay the fee. Later that afternoon, as you walk through the neighborhood with your partner, you discuss the 11-day trip to Ireland you have planned for June. It is going to cost $8,400 before you even buy the plane tickets. The deposit is already gone. You aren't sweating the digits at all. Think about that for a second. True luxury isn't the Castle Hotel in Dublin. It is the total evaporation of the mental arithmetic that used to haunt your every purchase. Then we hit level 6, the territory of the comfortable wealthy. Your net worth has climbed into that hazy stratosphere between $4.5 million and $7 million. In fact, you stopped checking the exact balance last year because the granular data doesn't matter anymore. You are watching the compass, not the speedometer. You are tracking direction over decades. It is a Sunday morning in Asheville, North Carolina, and you wake up at 7:41 on a 12-acre estate. You designed this house alongside an architect who billed you $32,000 for the privilege. Your nearest neighbor is also 12 acres away, and there isn't a fence in sight because when you have this much space, boundaries are understood, not built. Your support staff keeps the gears turning, a housekeeper on Wednesdays and Fridays, a CPA who handles the quarterly estimated tax payments, and a property manager who oversees your 2 rental units down in Charlotte. On a Sunday, none of these people need a word from you. What does this level actually feel like from the cockpit? It isn't about the raw power of a bank account. It is about the complete elimination of friction. Imagine a world where all the sandpaper of daily life, the fear of an overdraft, the haggling with a mechanic, the math at the checkout counter, has been smoothed into glass. That absence creates a cognitive quiet that is almost impossible to explain. Your mind finally has room to breathe. And with that extra space, you do things that matter. You call your brother in Sacramento, who is making $62,000 a year, and you listen to him for 40 minutes. He mentions an unexpected $1,100 car repair, and as soon as you hang up, you wire him $2,000. You don't mention it. He didn't ask. You just execute the transfer. Then, you sit by the open window and read for 2 hours without a single notification interrupting your thoughts. The window is open. The 4th rule, discretionary time freely spent with no one waiting on the other side of it, is the only currency that cannot be replicated. Once your net worth breaches the $20 million mark, you enter level 7, where your existence resembles a high-speed projectile that never actually touches the ground. You are currently stationed in your Upper West Side residence, just one of 3 nodes in your real estate network, but you have only been here for 4 days. By Tuesday, you will be in Miami. At this altitude, your properties are not homes, they are managed assets. Your personal assistant does not send you news, they send you a customized operational briefing. This week's docket includes a pair of board meetings and a high-stakes legal review on Thursday to dissect the EBITDA restructuring for that massive Phoenix deal. Even your Sunday night is booked for a charity gala you committed to 7 months ago. You are sitting at a $30,000 table, 10 seats purchased to secure proximity to a specific donor base your advisor identified for the next funding round. You did not pick the cause. You do not care about the $400 plate. You simply play the part, shaking hands with strangers you will never call and posing for photos destined for 2 trade journals. You slip away at 9:47 p.m. into the back of a car, looking out at the skyline and realizing you cannot recall the last time a Sunday was actually empty. Your hours no longer buy your freedom. They are now the currency you pay for other people's perceptions. Then there is level 8, a financial stratosphere where the numbers become so large most people are afraid to even say them out loud. With a net worth north of $150 million, Your fortune fluctuates by amounts that could sustain entire families for generations, yet you stopped checking the ticker years ago. You are in Malibu this weekend. The staff was on site by 6 a.m., and your security detail is already stationed in the lobby. This is not about being paranoid. It is a cold, actuarial calculation. You are an irreplaceable asset, and assets of this caliber require a high-level shield. You eat a breakfast that is technically flawless, prepared by a private chef, and you eat it in total isolation. You think about your 23-year-old daughter in Brooklyn. She lives in an apartment you did not buy because she wanted to prove she could do it on her own. She called you on Friday just to talk, but the conversation only lasted 9 minutes because your chief of staff broke in with a minor issue that felt urgent at the time. You promised yourself you would call her back Friday night, then Saturday, then today. Sunday is almost over. You reach for the phone, hesitate, and put it back down. You tell yourself tomorrow will be the day. At the very top, on the floor reserved for billionaires, the concept of a weekend vanishes into a cloud of abstraction. Money at this scale has lost all legibility. You aren't thinking about dollars. You are thinking about the infrastructure budget of a sovereign nation, a massive fleet of satellites, or the operations of a metropolitan hospital. None of these things feel tangible anymore. The only things that possess any weight are the decisions you make. You have become a ghost in a machine designed specifically to eliminate the very concept of resistance. Your life is no longer a series of events, but a highly orchestrated sequence where every jagged edge has been sanded down by a staff that anticipates your needs before you even have them. Every minute is accounted for by a calendar system that functions with the terrifying precision of air traffic control. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists when you have deleted every queue and waiting room from your life. You haven't stood in a physical line for so long that the memory of it has actually blurred into static. But this total frictionlessness creates a paradox. You find yourself completely alone, which is a world away from being lonely. To be lonely is to reach out for a hand that isn't there, but to be alone at this height is to be surrounded by an entire crowd while remaining fundamentally unreachable. Every individual you encounter is actually just having a conversation with your balance sheet. Even the people who truly love you, the ones with honest intentions, have to navigate around the massive gravity of your status. You don't even get angry about it anymore. You've simply integrated it into your personal risk model like a fixed cost. Just 8 days ago, last Sunday, you spent 22 minutes on your back terrace watching a red-tailed hawk carve circles into the valley air. No cameras were on you, no assistants needed a signature, and for those 22 minutes, you weren't a portfolio or a variable in a trade. You were just a human watching a bird. Think carefully about the fact that those 22 minutes were the only clear ones you've had in 4 months. Now, look at the clock. It is 7:14 on a Sunday morning. You are on the 43rd floor, watching a city that hasn't started its engine yet. Down there, a 24-year-old is clutching a dead phone and $31, marching toward a library for warmth. A 31-year-old is staring at the same student loan balance and finally hitting the exit button. Somewhere in those suburbs, a couple is sitting in a house they spent years building, watching the weekend vanish as Monday takes over at 3 p.m. And 3 floors above you, someone who climbed out of nothing is staring at a contact labeled daughter, ignoring a notification that their net worth just jumped again, trying to decide if it is too late to pick up the phone. The capital machine doesn't care about any of them. It is an elevator that never stops moving, and it certainly doesn't care which floor you think you've reached. Remember to subscribe and hit that bell for more analysis. What do you think about the tax of success?